Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Well, look, thanks for coming. It's nice to see you here. And yeah, so I've been working here for the past month, and I came here, I suppose, to take a period of reflection, excavation, and kind of recycling of some of my past work, and as well as interacting with the city and landscape of Lisbon and adapting to its sort of textures and colours, and in particular the found material that I would come across on the streets. My attention is really focused on waste generally, or the kind of unnoticed or disregarded parts of the everyday aspects of life. And I was taking a lot of walks and coming across or encountering these sort of material moments, and sometimes that led me to like bits and pieces that I would gather and bring it back to the studio. And I was using the studio, I suppose, as a way of recording like a kind of energy pavements here are super slippy, so I thought it was, you know, an interesting word to think about. You know, I find that like words and verbs like generate a lot of thought processes here.
Sorry, but maybe it's mean that my English is a bit relapsing. It cannot also go towards something that returns somehow. Like I'm
Like a
thinking
full
about
circle.
time lapse.
Oh, time lapse. Yeah, I suppose I never thought of it in that kind of way. But I was thinking more like a lapse in concentration, or like a lapse in, I don't know, technique or something. Something that like falls. Because I was initially thinking of collapse, because I really like that word as well. Something that feels like it's going to fall over, or you know, fall into itself somehow. But yeah, then like I got lapse from collapse. But yeah, a time lapse then is another level to it, I suppose. Yeah.
Maybe I remember about this word because my feeling about this installation is a bit. It seems kind of how to say simple, but it contains all the experience that you have built up with your practice, and also there are these elements that are coming out as a kind of archaeology into your past work. So for me, it was kind of on spot somehow, the idea of a circular movement or something that returns and continues to happen.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to think about. Yeah, because it's deceptively simple, I suppose, or like it. You know, for me, if I make something that I feel is successful or good, you know, it's like it looks as though it just happened. You know, that I haven't had any input or intention behind it. It's just kind of come together by chance. But it's sort of like I use the word to orchestrate a lot as well. So it's like you're, you know, in front of the orchestra and you don't really know what they're there for, or you do, but you're kind of wondering what it is they do. But you know, like they're important for the whole kind of coming together of the piece, you know, whatever the piece is. And you know, that really resonates with me as well. But yeah, it's hard to get that sort of between intention and like improvising, you know. Yeah, sometimes it works, but sometimes, yeah.
But it's so fun and so beautiful the way that you describe it, because you can see it also in your work. It's the materials themselves are sort of in the forefront of the piece. So you leave a lot of materials raw or just as you found them. And then others you influence more. And I don't know if you want to go through the rest of the pieces before you pick up any questions, or maybe you can share a little bit about that. What kind of irks up your wish to interact with the material and, for example, put paint onto it and sort of kind of change it somehow, and how do you choose to leave some materials be?
Yeah, no, I used to think like the less I have to do, the better it's going to be, which is a kind of strange approach to have. But yeah, it's I suppose like I've never really used photography, for example, like as actively as I have done here, and you know, that's kind of, it's my own photographs I'm cutting up. It's not, you know, other people's work, or it's not something I just. Sometimes it is a found photograph, but rarely. I would never like touch it, or you know, put paint on a found photograph. I would usually, you know, I'm always like recycling my own gestures, my own like touches and things. It's like a recycling of the self. And but yeah, I guess. So I mean, for the matchbox piece, for instance, I mean that it's a very sort of momentary decision to say, oh yeah, I'll just paint that. And you know, oftentimes when I'm painting, I will paint something just to maybe prime it or just to prepare it, but then I might have loads of paint left over, and so okay, what can I do? What will I have to do with this leftover paint? And a lot of my decisions come from like a sort of sense of being ad hoc. So just, you know, this is for this, and like this, you know, it's like the less input I have on my own yeah, it's, I don't know, it's in a way, it's kind of like shirking responsibility for the work.
But interesting, because it's sort of, do you then believe in the purity of materials, or is it you think that they have, like, as long as they are kept purest to the way that you found them, it's kind of like they carry more weight in that sense? Or is there something else of course you mentioned responsibility, I don't think that's it for you somehow. But yeah, do you think the material itself, the rawness of it, that's what adds to the piece? That's why is that the reason you like it, or is there some other element that you are attracted to?
I think the pieces or the things that I'm attracted to are really for like more selfish reasons, that I can use this to make something that looks like a painting, but it's not a painting. It always comes back to how can I make a good painting, but it's like coming from that whole, you know, trying to be experimental and trying to think outside the frame of what makes a painting work, and how is it placed, how is it situated, but how does it still feel like a painting, even though I might be painting with space or painting with architecture. But still, I have a lot of respect for, you know, things like craft and tradition and really kind of slow methods of working that, you know, follow a step-by-step process. Even though that's not the way I work at all, it's really like ad hoc and improvised. But at the same time, there is this sort of slow thought process going on behind it. But yeah, it's it really, like, it comes back to, you know, questions of shape and form and, you know, just a feeling of something or a sense of something, but, you know, I'm kind of revealing something and also hiding it at the same time. There's a whole, there's a bit of a dialogue going on there. Yes, yeah.
It's quite interesting. It also makes me think then, because you occupy all of the space and sort of it creates different moments of, different paintings. So the entire space is occupied, and then the question is, where is the field of vision getting focused? You cannot comprehend everything all at once, so the frame is moving together with the viewer. And yeah, it's also something that's interesting, like when you choose a spot or where you put the pieces, how is it that you frame it in your mind? Do you have like a preferred spot to look at the piece? Like, you know, when you put up, for example, this composition, is there a preferred field of vision for the viewer, or is it something to explore for, like, with each like minimal stroke, so to say, brush stroke?
I think with this space in particular, it was you know, a case of like walking through it and getting a feel for maybe the certain eye points, or you know, the really using what is already in place, such as these two hooks. So that really, again, it comes back to like decision making. If I don't have to make the decision of where to position this and work with what is already here, it's sort of it's like piecing a puzzle together in a way. There's only, you only are given so many clues, and it's a for me it's really an enjoyable way to work. It's tricky sometimes and it's difficult, and it takes, you know, you need a lot of headspace for it, but it's the way I've been working for a while now, and you know, I'm excited by the possibilities to take it to another level, or to, you know, maybe do more collaborations with other people, you know, not necessarily artists, but maybe some other people in a different discipline or something. You know, that would be really nice. Move along here. Yeah. At the same, there's always, I love to include a sense of something ridiculous or like really playful. So that was the decision behind using the chair, picture chair, and also you might notice the couple of egg boxes that are hanging out. But again, like the chair, it was sort of playful decision, but also I really love that peach colour, and you know, looking at it as an object, I think it's a really unusual and interesting object in itself. So by positioning it here, you know, I wanted to draw your attention to it and how it's sort of floating above this sort of floor platform piece, which is a bit more chaotic maybe, but yeah, it's really you know, plays with your own perceptions of what you think should be on the wall and what you think should be on the floor.
I'm curious, like in this case, it's all the pieces we can really feel are really side responsive. But do you have other pieces that you have that you consider a portable piece that can exist everywhere, that are finished? Finish, it's a difficult word.
It's more mounted,
solid.
maybe.
Yeah,
Like,
I guess actually if we go back up to the first one, this particular piece was something that I put together during the first or second week I was here, and that for me is maybe as complete as it could get, and I'm really happy with how that looks, and I'm, you know, the way it's put together though, it is just with bits of tape, so you know, once I bring it home with me, I'm going to find ways to like properly secure it in place so that it can be taken and positioned in other spaces. But yeah, I think possibly that is the most finished work. Or
I remember that sharing a little bit that back to almost 1 week ago when we started to install all the pieces here, and I'm seeing you that you're starting to move the pieces and the objects into the gallery, and when I look at them all together, I'm already like starting to see something that you have kind of pre-organized, kind of. So I'm curious that like you speak about this piece, for example, you is like one of the pieces kind of like fine-tuned in a way before coming to the gallery. So like, for example, if you find one piece at the very, very first object in Lisbon, and then did you start to think about what's next, or like, okay, I found something green, am I going to get something pink, or like did you got something pink first and then in the end you try to look for something light blue, like something like that? Do you have this in mind, and then it's time to also at the same time think about the gallery space?
yeah.
How do you think? Because for me, I feel like back to your painting background, the whole gallery is like kind of a one canvas.
Yeah.
So and you're trying to bring all the colors here, but I don't know if you also like in between, do you choose first color or second color, or just by chance like trying to how does it work in this process?
Yeah, I suppose it is mostly by chance encounters, and not sort of having a predetermined idea of something or how something's going to be or feel. I might, like you were mentioning about certain colours, I might be thinking of, sometimes I'll be thinking, oh, I'd love to find something.
I mentioned color because for me they are they belong to the same collection in a way, and they are not going to be like out of tone, you know. So it's quite smart choice in a way. So I can see that.
Yeah, and I guess the colours, I mean, I think a colour in terms of light more than colour, or like, you know, tones and shades and hues more than like, oh, blue, you know, because there's so many shades of blue, it's just, what kind of associations do you have with a particular blue? Yeah, I guess maybe here it would be good to mention like the wool that I've been using. I've been using this in different installations as a sort of framing device. But it was something I was really attracted to for its colour, which is actually a sea green. But it doesn't show up that way, but it's a really kind of striking colour. And so I might have something solid like that I will build upon and play around with other things that I happen to find. Say for instance like the pink and the blue boards on there, I didn't, again it was by sort of chance encounter, beside the bin on one of the streets here, and it's a case of, I've been engaging in a practice of like using found objects since I was a student, and it's a sort of a point where you feel like the world is meeting you at some kind of halfway point, and it has a sort of like energy behind it that I'm drawn to something because it has its own energy that I can take and use. And it also feels a little like transgressive in that, I'm not supposed to take this, but I'm going to, and it feels a bit sneaky and, like a cheeky thing to do. And, I've always enjoyed that aspect of it, even though it's not really that radical or anything else. Like lots of artists use the found object, and they have done for years. But yeah, I suppose there is a part of me that makes you want to, or like it in a way doesn't really, it feels found, but maybe it doesn't feel so purely like a found object at the same time. It's kind of playing with that idea a bit. Or I'm also interested in like questions of authorship and who am I to say that I'm like the creator of this when I just saw a thing and found it and then put it there. Like, it feels in a way like cheating the system of painting a little bit, and that's the sort of thing, like something I grapple with in my own practice, is that I want to do, or to have a process that's really streamlined or refined, so that it becomes like a streamlined thing, but I don't want it to feel too easy or too kind of or to feel like I'm not working hard enough, so I still want to reap the benefits of progress and like development, but also not to feel like I'm not working hard enough. So it's always a kind of test to like push the boundaries of the frame and to play with materials and space and different sort of aspects of that. But the element of chance is really, really important, I think, and that's why I enjoy doing experiences like this and coming to a new place and opening yourself up to the chance encounters. Because there's always, I don't believe in such a thing as nothing. There's always something, even if it seems like there's nothing, there's always something. I'd like to end there.
For me, maybe to speak about the place, it's interesting how there are quite a few elements that are related with constructions, like the green drywall, this blue styrofoam, this metal part, and for me it really speaks about Lisbon in a way, because there are so many construction sites right now.
Yeah.
So at the same time, I'm not sure if I just recognize it because I live here, or like I cannot really understand if it's because I'm inside the city that I see it, because in the end the materials are communicating with other elements, their colors. So, but I mean, this observation was just to say that I can really feel that you absorb something from the surrounding, and then it's not just picking objects that you always pick in another place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is something that echoes the specific place that you're working in, and I think that's also very sensible. And I wonder if you see it working in different places, how it affects your work.
Yeah, something I've said before, like particularly in writing applications, or I'm trying to get someone to take me on for something, is like I'm interested in the personal geography of the work, and personal geography is, I don't know, maybe a bit of a wishy-washy term, but like it's I suppose the geography of the object, and it's really intertwined with where it comes from, or where I found it, or where it's been situated. And I don't think you can like separate those two things. You can't really take it out of context. It's always has a strong relationship to the context it's in, and that's why I really enjoy working in this way, because I can't remake this. I could try making it in a different space, but it wouldn't feel the same, or it wouldn't be just like repetition. It would take on a different form, and the shapes would feel differently based on the nature of the condition of the space, and the condition of me seeing the space. It's really I don't like to use the word like ontological, but I've been coming across that word an awful lot, and it's like the philosophy of being, or it's like noting what is, or philosophy of what is, and it's a really like been thinking about my practice now, and as a sort of ontological pursuit of materials, or to try and get a feeling of what it's like to be this material, and what's to just really pay attention to what's happening in it. And sometimes it's just really like a bag on the floor, when other times it's more like it has a relationship to me touching it with paint, or putting some kind of gesture on it, and arranging it in a certain way. But they have such a strong relationship to the place that they're in.
I was also wondering, because basically you kind of interfere with the natural how to call it, cycle of objects, in the sense that you go and grab an object, the object is temporarily an art piece. I wonder if after being part of your works, they become something that you get attached to and that you need to keep and collect, or if you just return things to the world. I'm curious about it.
Well, in very practical terms here, like I'm gonna return the bits and pieces that I can't take home with me. I'm gonna return them to the street, and they will lose their limelight and go back to, because I would love to take everything home with me, to transport it back.
But your house would become an order house.
Yes, it would not be, just wouldn't be very practical. But no, with this, like I'm always recycling work, so that old work becomes new work, and that sort of it's in constant conversation with itself. And so like some of this will come home with me, and like a piece like this, for instance, I might cut it up and it becomes part of a different painting or a more sculptural object, or I might use it to clean paint off a board or something. It could be, I don't really get that attached to my pieces, or I don't, which maybe sounds kind of cold or something, but because there's such kind of
abundance of
Yeah, I don't think.
It's also part of this philosophy of accepting this transformation of things.
Yeah. I don't want to like impose. In a way, I don't want to impose myself on the object. Or I don't want to, place a certain kind of status on it in a way, even though it is like.
But then for me it's interesting also because you spent like quite a significant time photographing your work in the space.
Yeah.
And that for me also kind of creates a sort of a derivative work and where that frame becomes sort of solid and you something different. And I wonder what's your relationship to these photographs and how do you view that work? As it's something, because I know that you use the photographs also as in you cut them up and then you arrange them in the space, same as you do found objects. But then how do you deal with this amount of material that becomes archival, kind of pictures and...
Yeah. It comes back to just a really practical reason, like I'm photographing the work here in this context, in this instance, so that I can show it to other people and they might say, oh look, she does interesting work. It's for thinking of, to develop future applications and to say, oh look, I show work like this.
So it's more documental in that sense.
Yeah, documenting. Yeah.
So it's documental and that's, so to say, you don't view it as a sort of artwork of itself.
No, the documenting the work in space, no, it's just for practical reasons.
Actually, maybe this observation, sorry, you were saying something that for me is very interesting, and it's about how kind of to justify being an artist when you're doing a work that can superficially look too simple, and against this idea of virtuosism and artisan practice and everything. And I was going to ask, how do you then kind of structure your work? And I think this part of documenting become one of the answer, like your work becomes solid in a way that I can show it in other contexts or to do my next step.
Yeah.
But maybe do you have like a structured routine for your studio, which is not a studio practice all the time, but it's also about picking up. You were saying that during residency you were also photographing texture. I wonder if you can share just a bit about your how you structure your practice, considering this urgency of kind of assuming yourself as a very hard-working artist while it can not appear so obviously.
It does. It never feels like I'm working, but I'm always working. But it's no, it is, like you say, it's not so much a studio practice. It really is a studio practice because I at home I go into this space every day and I do something, and oftentimes I'm at a desk doing tedious tasks, but other times like a lot of it is getting up and moving around and rearranging things, and that was kind of where I got to thinking about the conductor or the composer, because it was constantly like rearranging things and just placing things in front of or next to different things, and it didn't feel so much like I was an artist making a piece. It felt like, to call yourself a maker, it didn't feel like the right word to use. But also I think the whole notion of craft is an interesting one in itself, because a craft is both like a skill in the handmade something, but it's also a skill in like deception and tricking someone into being like crafty or sly or sort of a bit like sneaky, in a way. I think sometimes my work feels very sneaky, like it's not so obvious or subtle. But I think I do like to play with that idea of craft and what it means and how I think about it. Yeah, like during studio hours, I will often be tidying up. I'll be like cleaning and rearranging, because I gather a lot of stuff, and it's for me, I have to kind of accumulate a lot of material and then extract from it maybe 20 to 10% from something that works or I feel has potential. Because like I gather lots of rubbish or different bits and pieces, and then it's quite a slow process of building something or making something. But yeah, certain pieces will be very fixed very early on, but other pieces might take a bit longer and they might form to new pieces, or different elements of it might appear somewhere else at a different point. So it's not very linear at all. It never has like a beginning, middle and an end. It's really led by the process, and I keep coming back to this thing like decision making. The less decisions I have to make about the outcome of the work, the happier I am, or the better outcome I think for the work to be. It's I really just want the world to tell me how to make the work instead of me like placing the work in this certain frame in the world. So the more that happens, the better. But sometimes it doesn't always happen that way.